Okay, go ahead.
All right, welcome. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our last Facebook Live during Pride Month, in honor of Pride Month. We're really happy to have you here today with us, and really, really honored and privileged to have our two guests with us here today, Colin and Robel. My name is Sreela Namboodiri. I am an integrative family medicine doctor here at Heartland, and I'm really excited to have this discussion today with our two guests to talk about intersectionality in terms of queerness in the context of culture. And yeah, excited to start the discussion. So I think before I go into my questions, I'd love to just hear you both introduce yourselves, and feel free to share name, pronoun, and any part of your identity that you would like to share with us today. So why don't we start? Colin's on top of my screen, so we'll start with, with Colin.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Happy Pride. My name is Colin Masquerianis. I am originally from Mumbai, India, and I've been living in Chicago for the past 8 years now. I identify as gay, and I'm out. I work with Desi Rainbow, and as well as I'm on the board of Chicago Tricone, which work for South Asian LGBTQI+ individuals in the Chicago area, as well as the suburbs, and anybody who needs any help or any kind of support. Our groups are basically there for them.
Thank you for joining us. And Robel?
Okay. Hi, everyone. Happy Pride. My name is Robel Hailu. I'm originally from Ethiopia. Currently, I'm based in Desi. I moved to the US 3 years ago. I'm daytime IT guy. I'm a web developer, and I'm working with my friends. I'm the co-founder of one of the organization called House of Guramayle. I'm not the only one. We are 5 co-founders. House of Guramayle is working on advocacy work on LGBT issue related to Ethiopian, even though we are in diaspora outside of Ethiopia, but we are advocating about to make a change in Ethiopia, especially LGBTIQ or queer families. Yeah, basically this is why I am. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us, Robel. Thank you both. So I think in honor of Pride and Pride Month, because it is the last day today, and this is our last Facebook Live of this month, I'd love to hear from both of you about your first Pride experience and what it was like for you, and what it meant for you. And why don't we start with Robel?
Sure. Thank you for the question. My first Pride was I was attending in South Africa. So I went to South Africa to do my master's, and while I was there, it was a Pride month, and Pride is not June in South Africa. It was in September, I think, if I'm not making a mistake. Because of the weather, obviously. So for me being there, like South Africa, especially Johannesburg Pride is the first African Pride. It's now 31 years since start. Being there and to see how people are celebrating, enjoying it's in Africa, South Africa is the only country have LGBT rights. And for me being there and seeing that, and not only that, when people are doing Pride, they're bringing all African countries flag. And it was a very emotional moment for me, because me being there and thinking about back home, how people are feeling, no one has a right, no one has a thing to say about our existence. People are denying our existence. So, but our brothers and sisters in South Africa, bringing our flag and celebrating about and talking about us, it was mind-blowing. And I was standing there and thinking, I was in tears actually thinking about, I hope there will be a day I'll stand who is a proud and pride, celebrating our unity, diversity, and celebrating being queer, being gay, or anything related to a queer spectrum. It was a very emotional moment for me. I will never forget. But seeing that, how people make a progress, how South Africa getting there, it just gave me motivation. If we are working hard, if we fight this fight, we'll get there. So it gave me hope in the meantime. So that was my first experience, and it was very mind-blowing, seeing how people are celebrating, enjoying, and no one is judging, no one is talking about anyone. And it was just like all about celebrating and togetherness and creating visibility for, and creating awareness for people actually what queer means, what actually being Black, and celebrating and having this kind of access in a content of, like, especially in a continent in Africa, like it's not, you get it everywhere, just only in South Africa have that kind of right. So that was my experience. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, it really sounds like there was some really powerful moment of feeling seen and the hope that can come with that. Thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, Colin, I'd love to hear about yours.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I have two experiences that I would like to share. My first Pride was in Mumbai, and that was back in, I had just finished my engineering. It was in around 2012, 2011. I wasn't completely out then. I used to meet people from our community. I used to meet other members, but I was not out to like my family, to my friends, some of my friends, but not completely to my family and friends. And this was the same time, when I'm not sure if everybody's aware of Section 377. That is one of the sections which basically decriminalize homosexuality, and you can be arrested for that in India. They had basically, it's basically a British law that was in power till 2018 or 2019. But one of the high courts had basically decriminalized it, and then the Supreme Court back in 2012 had criminalized it. So there was a lot of active people protesting against it, and that was the same time I went for my first Pride in Mumbai. At that time, I really didn't understand what exactly Pride means and why do we need it. Because, hey, you know what? I can meet others. I can, go out, hang out with somebody. But the actual freedom where I can like openly speak about who I am, or basically not worry about a cop coming in and or somebody blackmailing me, those details were never into my mind. I never thought about what exactly are the legal implications towards having your rights. I can do everything under cover, or basically do it where I live two worlds. That kind of feeling I was. So I remember very well when I joined my first Pride, I had worn a motorcycle helmet, so that I cover my face. Nobody actually looks at me. And we were a bunch of friends, 5-6 friends. I just gave them some excuse saying, hey, you know what, I'll come late. And then I was on the motorcycle and I was just observing, what exactly happens there, because I was scared. I was scared like somebody will see me. Somebody will basically notice that what is Colin doing here? Somebody from work or somebody from my relatives will come and ask me like, what are you doing here? And it's not that I didn't know that I'm gay, but it's just that I was never ready to accept who I am. That was one part of it. And over the period of time, when I think in the course of time, when I started accepting myself, I started understanding what is the real meaning of being really free, where I don't have to worry about the system or about the government or anybody basically harassing you or just being like somebody else. I came to Chicago in 2014, and in 2015, when they announced that they are making all 50 states have rights, marriage rights for everyone, and it was a very emotional moment. It was really, and at the same time we had the shootings happening in Florida. So definitely that was another very, very emotional moment where I really felt, I mean, at the same time there was shock as well as, there is freedom where you are experiencing both of them together. So I knew that, and that was the first time where I openly went out with my friends and my family, not with my family, but my friends and family friends, to visit the first Pride in 2015 in Chicago. And it was a great experience. Like, not just the colors, it's just, everybody, the support that you get there. You also, there are elements where people come in and, they're holding posters saying that, this is against God, or this is against the will of God. You get to see people's thoughts and mentality, or you get to see different people there. There were some people who came with children, because I remember when I asked my friends, they said, can I get my children there for a Pride march? Just to look at it, and like, what will they see? Will they see like men kissing other men, or, nudity, or not nudity, but, is it appropriate for children? And I remember very well seeing a lot of families getting their children so that, they can absolutely accept it, understand what exactly is happening. And it was just a beautiful scene.
So wonderful to hear that, and especially like the sort of journey you had with your first Pride experience, and then contrasting. It actually goes to my second question a little bit, which is just wondering, and not necessarily asking either of you to speak to the experience of that you haven't had necessarily, but just wondering if you wouldn't mind sharing some similarities as well as differences in the experience of queer people who are, in India and Ethiopia respectively, and like who still live there versus in the diaspora. And I know the diaspora is so diverse as well in terms of like immigrants and people who are second generation and things like that. But just wondering if you wouldn't mind sharing any either personal or from friends or things you've noticed in terms of similarities and differences. And I know that this will also cover like both of, well, Colin had just mentioned, and so had Robel, in terms of like legal differences, which are huge as well, and like maybe religious influences as well, if you wouldn't mind talking about that a little.
Yeah, I'll share a little bit of my experience, because I know, when you say about India is not like just one particular identity or one particular thing. You have South India, North India, somebody from East, West, each one talking a different language, behaving, their food, culture, everything is different. And even the so-called persecution, or basically, bullying, is basically different in every different place. But overall, I can tell you, at least as coming as an immigrant, I know, like during my school days, this the word chakka, which is basically a eunuch, people making fun of you, or like, teasing you with particular names. It's something which is very common, and I've like spoken to a lot of my friends back in India, as well as, who migrated here. There were specific terminologies used for every language. Like, if you're from South India, I know there was a different term that was used or made fun of using that. And you can relate to that, you can relate to those experiences in school, or for that matter, even like, your parents or somebody from it's mostly with parents basically punishing you. Here, I don't think so your parents would like, I wouldn't call this abuse, but basically, make you, they would beat you or do something like that. But I have had so many stories where back in India, and people who come here also, there's been a lot of trauma and a lot of baggage that comes. And when you share those stories, you can basically understand there's a common thread, or there's a common the behavior that happens, experience that happens between them. And that may be very different, or that experience may be very different here. It may be similar in many ways, but at the same time, you talk about the language, or the way you interact in school, the way you interact with your parents. And I'm talking about like first generation Americans, or children who came from India, then their children, their experience is a little different, but at the same time, you have both common areas, because we, at the end of the day, like, as you said, we are all Indian. So what will my relatives say? What will my uncle or auntie say about, when they know your kid is basically who identifies different? That is same. That thought is the same, even if you're in India or you're here, but here you may have more economic freedom. You may have more freedom to like move, be more independent. People back in India probably, or people who are there, may not have the resources that you need to do that. So and then you have the resources here where, your government supports you, you have like housing, or you have other ways. Things are changing drastically here. You have a good support system. It may not be the best, it's improving. Definitely a lot of people are fighting for it, but you may not have those resources maybe in some corner of some village or state who basically doesn't even identify that.
Sure. I think we have a similarity like from India as well, but like I think when you talk about our difference and similarity, especially we have similarity even if you are living in Ethiopia or outside of Ethiopia. Most people still living in a closet. They're doing that because of security reason. Still, people, they don't believe that coming out will help them, especially when you are living with a family. Most people are independent, even though outside of Ethiopia, and especially in Ethiopia, like outside of Ethiopia, our Ethiopian communities are living one area, and they have still people that want to go to church, people that want to go to where the Ethiopian people are get together, and like there's a restaurant, coffee shop, or something. So because of that, people, they really scared to come out because you don't know the consequence. Not only that, being me coming out, it will impact your friends, your relatives, and your families. So everyone scared that. So we have that similarity. Like even if back home, yes, there's a law, being gay or anyone in queer community is illegal. It's like you'll be ended up in prison up to 15 years. That's it's illegal. It's a crime act. However, accepting yourself and caring for your family, whether you are in Ethiopia or outside of Ethiopia, still the similarities are the same because people are worried, like, do I have a family? How can I engage with this? Is that like, do I have even mental capacity? Once you are pushed out from your family, if you are like your relatives or your friends, everyone gonna abandon you. So people are not strong enough to handle that because it takes a lot of energy, it takes a lot of time, and coming out is not one day thing, it's everyday process, everyday thing. So that's our similarities of people, why even if they are living outside of the country or inside the country, they are scared coming out because of the society and the community we have. Because our life, especially Ethiopian life, I think it's similar to India life. I don't consider myself as one person. Our society calling everyone together. Like when I'm saying Robel, everyone's considering about my life actually, like involved. My families, my neighbors, the school where I'm going, the church I'm going, like everyone have something to say about me. So like I'm not like independent person like Western countries. So our culture is make it difficult for everyone to come out. And I believe also coming out is also individual experience, it's individual goals. So that make it different. So when it comes to difference, living outside of the country, yes, you have financial independence. Yes, you have a lot of better resource, and you have a lot of access, and especially when it comes to MSM, male, sex with male, there's a lot of resource outside of Ethiopia. Like, if you are in US, you can go to clinic, you can get PrEP, or you can get advice, you can do a ST test, you can get counseling, you can be open, and people will help you, like psychiatrists, therapists, you name it. So that kind of access people have. And when you are coming, if you are even thinking to come out for people, for your friends outside of the country, you don't fear like someone gonna kill me, someone gonna attack me, because there's a law. There's a law. People are gonna obey on that. Like no one gonna come and harm you. Whereas in Ethiopia, you don't know once you come out, the consequence will be, God knows. Like no one gonna give you guarantee. And you cannot go to police station saying someone harassed me because I'm gay or lesbian or transgender, because you are already called in our crime act to are illegal. So that make it worse. So here, people have that kind of differences. People have like, our friends, they're born here, but they have Ethiopian mother and father, or they have one mother, or like, depends. So they have the same similar experience like here, but when you come to rights, access, economic independence, and building community and having a relationship, we can go out together, you can go to like social gathering, you can have gay club or anything, so that you can feel at least once, like not every day, maybe you can do it every month, at least you can have those kind of privilege, to be surrounded by people, you can be yourself and no one gonna judge you, no one gonna blame you, no one saying anything about who you are. So that is a difference, like being outside of the country, including the legal and everything aspect that was mentioned earlier.
Yeah, thank you both for this. I feel like there is so much rich information in both of those answers. I'm like processing still. But just interesting, I think one thing I just, as, daughter of immigrants from India, I just, that I can understand that sort of collective, that you're not like an individual, you're part of a collective. It's such a very ingrained part of the culture. And yeah, and then but contrasting that with like both of you, I think mentioned also just like community, like finding community among people here as well, and that being a source of strength. And also just noting, as you said, this sort of importance of like finance, like it seems so maybe not something people think about, but actually being like financially independent and having resources is so that's provided often legally can be so powerful. So I'm wondering if you also would mention, don't mind sharing again, either personal experience or of expectations of gender. And because of course we're talking, it's not just sexuality, we're also talking about gender and cultural expectations of gender versus your gender expression, if you feel comfortable sharing that. Yeah. and within all the identities that you hold and the context, because of course, like, it's not saying that it's not binary in the US, there's very much like a binary here too, but just wondering if you wouldn't mind talking about that.
Sure, I can start on that. Yes, I think the expectation, like, especially where I'm coming from, there's a thing called you need to act and behave like men. So I never qualified for that section, even if I'm identified myself as a gay person. But I'm different from my brothers and sisters. Since kid, I know that. And I do remember, like, when I was a kid, I went like kindergarten, and I never liked playing soccer with other boys. I like playing like with dolls. And I remember actually, I keep saying this, like my safe haven was the first time actually accepting myself was my mom's best friend. She was my teacher. I call her auntie, and she used to fight for me, like, because most of my teachers, they keep saying, go out and play soccer, and I keep saying, no, I don't want. I'm trying to find myself actually, because I'm 5 years old, 6 years old. I have no idea what life is, but I'm trying to exploring actually what I want. And most of my teachers, they are not happy with that because boys need to act like boys. But I would like to sit and playing with dolls. And my mom friend, she said, like, no, don't tell him what to do. He knows what you want, let him. So she let me play, and she want me to do everything what I want. So always I do remember her, like, because I think that was the first time actually someone defend me, who I am. And she supports the idea of what I'm trying to do, what I'm exploring. And she keeps saying, I remember, you can do whatever you want, like there's no limitation. If you don't like football, that's fine. Just do whatever you want. Like this is small child, like don't tell him what to do. So that was like, so growing up, it has also consequence. Like when I went like high school, elementary, people, they used to bully me like, because I'm different and I have feminine side. So people saying, oh, you are like feminine, you don't like playing with us. And people, they used to call me certain names. But I don't know what to tell for people. Like, to be honest, in that stage, I don't know what being gay means. I don't have any idea, but I know I'm different, but I cannot put it in a context of what it means. But the society actually knows I'm different, and they used to give me this label because I'm not good enough to be men. I'm not good enough for them. So always, I think this toxic masculinity and this patriarchy, what we have, is very difficult, especially as a gay guy born and raised in Ethiopia, in capital city. I don't even know how to go and to tell my mom and dad or my siblings, someone call me this. I do remember the first time who called me that name. Like I was grade 4. I do remember that guy with his name, what he was wearing that day, everything, because that was a day actually I'm facing the reality. Someone knows I'm different. Then when you grow up and when you come out, then people say like, how dare you are doing this? And like, what? What do you mean? You know I'm different. When I told you actually this is who I am now, you have an issue with that. Like they knows we are different actually since we are child. I'm not talking on behalf of everyone, but most people, they knows we are different. So that experience has a lot, and especially this toxic masculinity, like how men behave like this. I have friends, especially lesbians, especially if they are different, like you are a butch, you are doing this, you are not like, you are tomboy, there's a lot of derogatory words people keep using. But and that's like when you're a child, like you don't even know exactly what it means. I have no idea actually what being gay or what gay means. I don't know if I wasn't attracted to guys or anything, but in that stage, like, no, I'm trying to figure it out. I'm trying to understand and I'm trying to navigate the world. But a poor child, I was born and raised in that country, but there is no resource. There is no anyone to support you. Like, nowadays you can see the difference. Kids in US now or in Europe, they have that access. Like, you can watch news and you can see people actually what exactly means queer means, what gay means, what lesbian means. So even kids knows nowadays, like since young age, they are different. But where I'm coming from, it wasn't there. Still currently, depend on what you're wearing, what you are dressing, but still there's a lot of judgment. People are saying why you are wearing skinny, why you are wearing this, why you're wearing that, because it's always people keep telling them there's a propaganda, like these gay people wearing this, dress up like this, lesbians dress up this. So it has a lot of flair into it, but I think my experience was very bad. And like I have to go to therapy actually to forgive some of my friends, because still certain words, like especially those words, I used to be bullied. Still it trigger me, like I don't like when someone's calling or making a joke on certain words, because it just reminds me actually what people make me feel. And I think, yeah, so that was my experience.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, really, and a lot of that's trauma. I mean, it's trauma, right? Like bullying, I think we didn't have an understanding of that in the past, I think, as being something that is traumatic, but and of course we can be triggered by those things even later in life. Yeah, but I'm just really inspired by was it your mom's friend or your slash teacher who was like, let him be himself. Because right, as children, you're not, yeah, you don't know a label. You're just doing what is natural and what you love. And yeah, thank you for sharing that. Colin.
Yeah, so I'm going to share something really personal to to my life. So I grew up. I mean, so let's start this way. My grandmother was, a side actress in a black and white, in black and white films, like maybe in I think 50s or 60s. And me growing up, I used to love dancing. I used to love dancing, and I used to like watch, Sri Devi or like Madhuri Dixit on TV, and that is it. I wanted to dance like, the famous snake dance that Sri Devi did, Nagina, or like some other dance. I just wanted to dance. And initially, when you're just like 3, 4 years old, people are okay with it. They're like, okay, he's dancing, he's entertaining. But at one point, I remember I was in school as in my second standard. I wanted to do the dance in front of the entire class. Like, we had like a free a class, and teacher was like, who wants to draw, who wants to, show your talent. And I was like, okay, I want to dance. And I danced like Sri Devi, or, one of her items. And the teacher was very impressed. She's like, okay, he can really dance. Why don't you put him in like Indian classical dancing? And I started learning dance. Like my parents were supportive. They were like, okay, he likes to dance. Why don't you put him for Indian classical dancing? And as you know, and some of you may be aware that Indian classical dancing is like serious, learning of music, dance, and language, and literature and all that. And people even like go ahead and do their masters, or you become professional dancers. At that time, when I was growing up, I started learning Indian classical dance called Kathak. And I remember I was the only male boy in the entire group of 50 girls. And this was outside of school. So, I used to, we finished school, and then it was like an extra class. I used to go with one of my neighbor who was a girl, and, I used to enjoy. I was just so happy about it. And suddenly, one day my relatives come home, and they start questioning all this, like, he's a guy, what is he going to do after learning dance? What is his career going to be? Is he going to like, how is he going to, will he have more saris than his wife has? These kind of bullying questions which actually came in, like, he wears belts on his leg, and is he going to dance and entertain the whole world and make, career out of it? And even at school, when I used to share today I went for my dance class and I learned this particular, dance piece or particular action. People started making fun of it. People were like, okay, keeping names, as Robel mentioned, you were made fun of. And that is where the whole bullying experience started, where you start realizing, okay, I want to do something, but that's not basically defined in my gender role. These are some things which I want to do that makes me happy. But at the end of the day, the society doesn't accept it the way it is. Because I'm a boy, I need to do certain things, and basically it's very difficult for somebody else to accept it. And that bullying went on to an extent where, I was at one point, I was like, okay, I do not want anybody to identify me with dance. When I went to engineering, I made sure nobody knows that, I was a trained classical dancer. And after one point, there was so much of pressure. There's so much of like, even somebody comes and like talks to you, like even unknowingly just tries to make fun of something, you just get so concerned, or it pricks you more than, which actually it should. I remember very well, I finished my engineering, and that is the whole, I was telling you about the 377 and the whole coming out phase. I ended up going to one of these dance shows, one of the events where they had all different forms of classical dance. And I happened to just fall in love with another form of Indian classical dance called Odissi. And it's been now more than 11 years now that I continue learning Odissi. I've been really fortunate to get very, very accepting and loving gurus in my dance school, as well as here. I've got a very good supporting thing. The thing is that as a Indian classical dancer, or usually somebody who learns classical dance or music, you have a community within the Indian community who's very conservative, who's very orthodox. They want to make sure that you're learning it the right way, you're doing things right, you do not mix things with other things. And then again comes the stigma of you're talking about your sexual preferences and identity. But to be very honest, when I have spoken to my guru, I know a lot of gurus who have let go of their students, who have disowned their students just because they choose to be who they are. But at the same time, there are gurus who are like, okay, you are born the way you are. And in fact, when we talk about literature, you talk about the mythology that we enact through our dance. It speaks a lot about one god turning into a male and then turning into a female. A child is born out of it, and those kind of, there are a lot of stories which talk about gender fluidity and sexual identity, which are which we depict through dance. There's one piece called Ardhanarishwar, which is basically half Shiva and half Parvati, and that's basically a very famous piece in any form of classical dance. But when we come to gender identity, it's basically sometimes there are some people who say you need to dance like a man, and then some who say you need to dance like a woman. But the fact remains is that you are expressing a dance piece, so that should basically come out, and not basically, oh, your presentation or basically should be masculine or feminine. It's basically what you feel or what you express should be basically coming out. So when we talk about gender roles, there are a lot of other things, like a simple thing like costumes. We make them out of saris, and a sari is a very feminine thing. You associate with women liking saris, but then at the same time, I love my costumes. I would like to have different saris, and I know a lot of other classical dancers who just have we wear them during our dance recitals, and we are very particular about it. We just love them. So it's beyond just saying that, okay, this is, you are a male, so you have a particular gender and you have a particular role, and not to just basically think about what you really feel and what you really like.
Yeah, that's a great, what a beautiful example of gender fluidity, and in terms of when you, it's such interesting when you brought in the mythology and a lot of classical.
Yeah, because even when we talk about we talk about Krishna, we talk about other Indian gods and goddesses, and we talk about Durga, who's basically a woman, but she's a warrior. So basically when we associate how would I say, we associate femininity with being good, beautiful and all. But at the same time, you have somebody who's a warrior who fights war. And then you have Krishna, who's basically, who has a nose ring, who basically has curvy hips, and who has a braid, long hair. So you associate all that with women. But if you go basically, especially in Orissa and Odissi, which I learn in that state, you basically describe a man with all these feminine qualities, and then you have a woman, a goddess, who's basically having all these masculine qualities. So it's really interesting to see that in books, in literature, but at the same time, in reality, it's very different. You have some gurus or some teachers basically disowning you just for being who you are. But as I said, it's, everybody is not the same. It's basically different.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. And I'm just thinking, as I'm sitting here listening to both of your stories and just listening to how kind of goes to my next question with your lived experience, because both of you in terms, you do a lot of work that is about creating change and acceptance and community building, and that is activism, and just in the living of your life as you are, right? And is a form of activism in that it's inspirational, and that it's can inspire others. So I'm curious, I guess it's kind of a two-part question, which is, what inspired you to do some of this work that you're doing that you mentioned in your introductions? What inspired you, and also how do you feel like your lived experience, really informs that activism, informs the work you do? It's kind of a two-part. Whoever wants to start.
Robel, you can go on.
Sure. Thank you, Paul. So can you repeat the question again so that I can?
Yeah, well, it was just a couple. I mean, they kind of are similar too. Just how do you feel like your experience, like your life, your lived experience, informs your activism and the work you do, and also just like what inspired you to do this work? Like, I'm going to let you actually talk about your organization, but I know it's like a global organization, and so what inspired you to kind of get into that? And also, how do you feel like your lived experience, how does it inform the work you do?
Sure, thank you. I think when you talk about activism, representation, advocacy, always, people want to hear your stories. So my form of advocacy, my form of activism is actually telling stories. I believe in telling stories, sharing my experience, telling who I am. And the reason why I'm doing that, because mostly when you talk about any queer-related or LGBTQI plus community, especially in Africa context, I think the same thing in Asia and other continents, people believe that this is Western thing, it's not like African thing. And people, they don't believe my existence and our existence. So when I'm telling people like, I'm Ethiopian, I was there and I do everything like other Ethiopian people do, but I'm different. What? Because I'm falling in love with a guy doesn't make me less Ethiopian. And telling my stories and sharing my stories, people can relate to. People that say, oh shit, like, oh, you are there. Like, I didn't know. Because there's a lot of people keep saying, I don't know any Ethiopian gay guy. I don't know Ethiopian lesbian. Because people are scared of you. People are not willing to come out because there's a consequence. After you are saying that, there's no legal protection. There's no any form of protection. So your life will be in danger. That's why people are not coming out. But it doesn't mean that we are not exist. So for me, activism, my life experience, what I went through in life, my up and downs, shaped me in a way to become this person, telling my stories and listening people. There's a lot of rooms I can engage and people can be wild as can be. Like I get a lot of hate message. I don't think I'm the only one that people do that. But I do listen to them because I keep saying, I get it. I've been you, like, I wasn't accepting myself because I was worried. And so listening people and sharing my stories, actually, I can see people take a pause. It doesn't mean that they're going to change, but they have that tendency. Oh, actually, what you are saying is exist. Yes, I was there, whatever. And because I'm gay, it doesn't make me less Ethiopian. I love my country like everyone does. And the reason why I choose being activist is because I don't want any of my brothers and sisters to go through what I went through. Because where I'm living in US, I have all right. Like, I don't need to fight. We don't like Colin doesn't need to fight for anyone. Like, because where we are here, people fought for it. We can enjoy life and everything, but it's not our call. My call is, I believe I need to make a change. I believe this is my call. I need to tell people actually what I went through so that I don't want any brother of mine or my sisters, anything in queer common to suffer, to pay the price. Most of us, we are out, paid the price, so that we need to create some visibility and people to acknowledge the fact that actually queer people exist in Ethiopia. And how can we actually work together? How can we live together? Ethiopia is a country for all, not only for heterosexual Ethiopians. So that I want to leave my country. I am Ethiopian and I am whatever anyone call himself in Ethiopia, I'm a part of it. So we are a part of a community, so that we need to create visibility. So that motivates me or drive me to be activist and to tell my stories and to challenge actually this status quo. Because there's a thing, I don't know which, I think is most countries, people, they have that tendency saying, oh, like, you know, like heterosexual is the only one actually Ethiopian. Like, no, it's not. Like, I can die for my country. We can be military, we can be doctor, we can be anything, you know. So having that kind of conversation is challenging, but bring that, it works. And me and my friends, we started this organization almost 3 years now. It's called House of Guramayle. In Amharic is Beta Guramayle. Guramayle means in Amharic is different. So the reason why we choose specific Amharic terminologies, instead of bringing the Western content, we need to bring people actually. Guramayle means different. So we are working on any marginalized group, sex worker, women's rights. We can work on disability rights and everything, so that even though we are focusing on LGBTI issues, but we are centering on all marginalized groups. We can talk, we can create visibility, we can share our stories, and we can bring some change, some form of stability for all Ethiopians living in Ethiopia and outside of Ethiopia. Because at the end of the day, we want this world to be a peaceful world for all of us, you know, without hating, without harming others. So that motivates me actually to come in a public space and to tell my story, so that people can learn and people can pause, you know, oh, I can be like you know, you can have a brother or sisters or mother, brothers and cousin, friends, you know, in queer spectrum, but no one knows who are they because we never give them a chance. So that's drive me actually to be activist and telling my stories that actually motivate me to create or to work with my friends and to create visibility. Yeah, that's why I choose to do this and why I love to do this.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing. Yes, representation, visibility, hearing stories. I think there's nothing more powerful than listening to others' stories. Thank you for sharing that, Robel. Colin, what about you?
Yeah, so back in Mumbai, I was never in the so-called gay scene or, you know, being active on the whole gay rights and LGBTQ rights. When I came here when I came here to Chicago, I felt alone. I was like lonely. I didn't know anybody. As an immigrant, I had like people from, all I knew here were people from work. And that's how we connect. You know, we have like a small Desi office family that I had. But I couldn't share my stuff. I couldn't share, you know, who exactly I am or what exactly I do. And there was always a search, you know, that I need to connect with other people with the same identity, Desis, queer individuals who I can just be myself and express myself. And at the same time, you know, this whole loneliness or actually having a family, it's not just me. There'll be many people around in the Chicago area or in the US who come here for, you know, as an immigrant, or even forget immigrant in general. They may not have something called as a family. They may not have some support where if there is something going on in their family or within them, in their thing, they can share it with somebody. And when I happened to come for one of the events at Chicago Tricone, I found a lot of similarity with a lot of individuals who come there. I remember going for the first potluck, you know, new to the place. I wasn't sure what to expect. I'm somebody staying in the suburb. The potluck was in downtown Chicago. Like how people will judge me, or what exactly am I supposed to do? These all questions were there. And over the period of time, when I started getting involved with the community, I realized that, you know, we need support we need to make this community stronger. And I can contribute to it with whatever resources I have. There are many people who may not be lucky enough to have these resources. And if I can share my resources with them, if I can share a hand saying that, hey, if there's something that you need, please let me know. There are so many families. And similar to something very similar that Desi Rainbow does, it's basically a support system for parents of queer individuals. And when I was growing up as a queer, my parents never had any support where they could say, let me call XYZ and talk about like why my son is behaving this way or why my daughter behaves that way. And when I started getting involved with Desi Rainbows, I have been to events like there was one event for Christmas, and I know a parent sitting with their child. The child was, I think, maybe in less than teens, maybe between 7 to 10 years. And it was such a proud moment and an emotional moment where I saw the mother sitting with the child, and the child is wearing a beautiful red dress with a red lipstick. And a few years down the line, we would never ever think of a parent supporting a child doing what they want and basically just being what they like to do. It was really emotional to see that today we have a platform where parents can reach out to somebody and say, my child is they feel that the child is different. And what do I do? How do I basically support them? We are there to provide counseling. We are there to provide any help needed. There is resources that we have. We have community centers. We have people who basically can work with the community and provide that support. There are so many people who are dealing with mental issues and they reach out to counselors, but counselors do not, maybe they're not Desi, they're not Indian, they don't understand the cultural things that why exactly we basically behave the way we do. So those kind of things, there are so many cases where we have reached out to a couple of families and children and try to make that little difference whatever we can. So it's been a really one is for my own self-growth as well as contributing to something that I can do for the South Asian community in my area, my neighborhood, and bring that change.
Beautiful. Yeah, support is so powerful because supporting the parents to support their children, that's like just like you're affecting so many people right there. I do want to be mindful of time. We do have it looks like we have a question in the chat, so I want to ask this of you both. The question is, what advice would you give to young children that are coming out or feeling quote different? So the question is, what advice would you give to young children that are coming out, or I guess trying to express who they are to their families or feeling different in any way?
Yeah, so I think this is a very, a broader question, and maybe this answer would vary from person to person, situation to situation, because the same advice that I give to, some person, it may not be right, or it may be not applicable to somebody else. And each one's situation, each one's environment, each one's parents, family, entire financial situation, everything is very different. But I would say it is okay to be in the closet till the time. It's okay to be where you are till you feel you want to be that way. Like there is no pressure. Don't be pressured to just be yourself. And if it takes time, if you feel bad about it, you want to take more time, you want to understand yourself, go ahead, take that time. Do not be judged by anybody, and make sure that you take your time, you feel comfortable. It's okay not to just say that okay, I'm out and I'm comfortable, because I know a lot of people are going through a lot of, it's a journey. It's not like one day you just get out of your bed and you're like, okay, yes, I am gay, I'm queer, and this is what I am. It takes ages, and even it takes years where you are in different phases. what I feel like what I felt 2 years back, I will feel like, okay, today what I am is very different from what I was 5 years back. It's the same me, but I was never out. I was still closeted. And that is a process. That's a process where you come out to your family, you come out to your people at work. Today you have a lot of resources, you have a lot of support, there's more acceptance, and that's really good. There's awareness. When I speak to people who are kids, many of them understand basically what is like LGBTQ, what are these, what are gay rights, what are queer rights. People are aware of it, and the acceptance is much. I think you have more resources, but I would say is take your time, be who you are, and do not get pressured.
Yeah, just to add on Colin, what he said, I agree with everything what he said. I think coming out is just like sometimes very confusing for people. Coming out is not for everyone. People, they need to be comfortable and they need to be who they are. And I think I personally advise people to have like, to be like mentally, physically, emotionally, to be strong enough, because you don't know what's going to happen. So you don't know what tomorrow holds for you. So that you need to have that, and creating actually friends and circle, to keep you motivated, to keep you regardless of what happened, so they can lift you up and to pull you from wherever you are and to keep you safe. Because always we need to create that safe space. We need to have that kind of facility. Otherwise, it's very tough because you don't know what tomorrow is. Yes, it looks nice on TV, but when it comes to reality, it's very different. It's individual experience. I don't know the person, his background or her background or their background, but it's very different from person to person, and how we process it and how we tackle things, and how some people are very strong enough to tackle something. Sometimes it's very hard for other people. So they need to take their own time. They need to advise actually the elder person around them who has this experience, so that they can guide them or direct them. But it just takes your time, and are not alone. I think they need to reach out to people actually around them. That would be my advice too.
Thank you both so much. That was great advice. I hope our person who asked in the chat, I'm sure will be very helped by that. And then I just had one last question for both of you before we close here, which is if you wouldn't mind sharing, and you did share about this kind of more in general, but like if you wouldn't mind sharing a really meaningful, experience or activity or conversation maybe that you had that was like as a result of this platform that both of you have and the work that you're involved in, if you wouldn't mind sharing like an experience that was just really meaningful to you.
Sure. I can start. On the House of Guramayle, I host the online IG live program. So that IG program is actually, we call it Heartland. Heartland is also Amharic term. Heartland means where exist, we are here. We choose the word actually people to hear our story. So in that program, I invite actually publicly out Ethiopian in queer spectrum. We have Ethiopian, I think the first time people start interacting with the first, I introduced two transgender Ethiopians. There's people gender non-conform. There's a gay guy, he has Ethiopian mother and father, he was born and raised in US. So I invite like 12 people. It used to be like few people. Now people can't see the difference. We are in every spectrum, in different life journey, and bring that actually, people just keep saying, oh my God, like you guys are everywhere, because before they know only few people are, because we are advocates, our face are on the news or whatever, that's how it is. But now having that platform actually gave me hope, actually people to learn, and those people are coming and sharing their experience actually. On that platform, we're talking about what was your childhood? Tell me how you grow up. And the end of the day, whether you are born in Europe or Ethiopia or outside or in US, our experience is the same more or less. Like, but how we navigate the world and how we finding people for them also, especially people born outside of the country. It was very hard for them. Like they didn't know because there's no platform for them to listen and to hear about other Ethiopian living in Ethiopia. But when they hear that, like they are excited and sharing their experience, and people are learning that. And I think it touched a lot of people life journey, and that make me happy actually how we can create visibility and not attacking the status quo or whatever the people they call themselves, but just sharing our stories, telling our stories. Actually it impacts people. I see a lot of people, I get a lot of message, people are sometimes very emotional, sometimes even people live in a closet and heterosexual and allies as well, like, oh my God, you know, you guys' stories are very amazing because they never ever thought someone come out in the public and gonna tell them, and they're willing taking questions. And that actually is basically, I see a progress, I see change, and I see how people interact with other people, and people are willing to listen. Yes, it's small people, but it doesn't mean that we're not making a change. But seeing a progress is just blowing my mind. You can see there's a change. People are listening, and that way to start, right? The next thing, the next step will be follow. So that, yeah, that helped me actually, and to see how it make impact in our people life, not only for heterosexual Ethiopians, but actually for queer people in a closet. You know, it will give them hope. You know, there's life. We can be queer and do your own thing and can come out if you want to. If not, it's also okay. You know, you don't need to fight. Like, you know, just be who you are and accept yourself and create a circle and a safe space for you around you, and just create a safe circle for you and your friends and for all queer families. So that's what I do, and that's what makes me enjoy, and that I see there's a progress. So yeah.
Yeah, I just want to add one thing there, and this is like a very personal moment. When I came out to my father, we didn't speak for almost 2 years. You know, it took that time. It was not very easy, and over the period of time, you know, he did a lot of research on his own back in Mumbai. He went to doctors. He tried to see if I could change, but you know, he at the end of the day, he has accepted me the way I am. And there was one moment where he actually mentioned, like, to my partner, my husband, that now I don't have just one son, I have two sons. And that's basically, you know, that's basically what I would want every parent to say to their children, if they have a partner or if they don't. But at the end of the day, just accept children who they are. And if I can basically make one small change to somebody's life somewhere and share my experience or share whatever, just, you know, call them and talk to them and just say, you know, hey, you're not alone. We are all in this together. I'll be more than happy to do that.
Oh my goodness. I feel so just like enriched by this conversation with both of you and listening to your stories and listening to the amazing work you're doing, both you know, kind of the advocacy and activism and work you're doing, and just, you know, the example that you both are just by living, you know, living your life and in this honest way and being yourself. So thank you so much for gracing us today, and the prior conversations we've all had. I think everyone watching now and watching in the future will have just really been, yeah, like just so deeply enriched by this conversation. So thank you so much. I definitely want you both to share your how people can contact you. You can maybe say it now, and then we can also put it in the chat, contact you or your organizations, whether all the socials and everything like that, because I definitely think that people are going to want to connect. So how can they connect with you?
Okay, they can connect me with House of Guramayle, House, H-O-U-S, Guramayle. I'm going to type it on chat. So there's an Instagram, Facebook page, and we have also a website, houseofguramayle.org. People can reach us out there, and if they have any information, if they want to learn, if you want to work with us, we're happy. We are more than welcome. I'm not the only one. We have 5 co-founders. So most of them are in Europe. I'm the only one in Northern America. So yeah, we are happy to have everyone. And I'm going to type out the website.
And then Colin, I think, did you just put? Oh.
Yes, it's desirainbow.org, DESIRAINBOW.org. And it's the same Instagram handle also, DESIRAINBOW parents. And then I have Chicago Tricone, which is a Tricone group for South Asian queer individuals in Chicago.
Awesome. Thank you both so much for sharing that. And I hope everyone checks them out, follow them, like their posts, watch the videos. Thank you both again so much for this conversation. I'm so honored that I was able to be here and listen and learn from you. So
thanks, Sreela. This is really a good conversation, and I hope somebody seeing this, somebody needing help, will reach out to us, or in general, at least say that okay, they're not alone. We are there to support them.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing this.
Yeah, thanks so much for having us and having this kind of conversation. And for the people who are watching this, happy Pride. And just I would like
happy
to say,
Pride.
Yeah, you are not alone. We are a lot. So just be safe, be well, and yeah, just reach us out if you need any help. And I'm happy being here and representing some folks. And yeah, thank you for having us.
Wonderful. Happy Pride. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye.